This is Brad Adams, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yes, indeed. Well, when you co-host a show like the Break It Down show with a guy named Pete A. Turner, you wonder, I wonder where that name came from. What's a guy got to do to get the name Turner? Well, today we're here with Brad Adams, and the thing about Pete is, longtime viewers of the show know that Pete grew up in Benicia, California. It's where I currently live, as well. And here in Benicia, California, in fact, if you go to Benicia.com, the featured artist on that website is Brad. Brad Adams is a woodturner and a craftsman with such a unique craft that we had to highlight what he does here. And he's such an interesting guy that we had to pull his story out of him. So, Brad, let's start actually with not just your occupation, but I like your life story. So, tell us, uh, tell us where you grew up.
I pretty much grew up on the Illinois-Wisconsin border, about 90 miles west of Chicago,
Okay.
on a farm growing cattle, hogs, and raising corn and soybeans, and ended up going to college at Texas A&M and studying fisheries biology, and then spent 8 years on the north coast of Alaska doing environmental impact statements on offshore oil production.
Hmm.
So I bounced around all over the place and then accidentally ended up in high tech in 1986.
Okay.
One of my college roommates talked me into coming down for a few months to help him get a company off the ground, and that few months turned into 18 years.
Okay. And where?
It was a company called Farallon in Berkeley, and they built the original local area networking that ran over twisted pair wiring telephone lines, and then turned into a company called Netopia that built internet access routers for the phone companies, primarily Pac Bell and AT&T and T and Deutsche Telekom and British Telecom all over the world.
So, if we were Pac Bell subscribers and we were early on internet and we got a router in our house, it's a
It
good
would
chance
it
your
would have
company
been a
built it.
Netopia.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So let's just recap. We've been in this show 90 seconds. We already got to recap Brad's story. Uh, Texas A&M. You see, you're a biologist. You studied fishery biology,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, somehow got lured by your college roommate to Berkeley by way of you went to Alaska first, and you
And
hop around doing
yeah,
things. And he said, just Brad, just come join me in Berkeley for a moment. I just need your help. So you committed to just coming out here for a little while.
yeah. Told him I'd give him 3 months before I went back to my real job, and that was in 1986.
Yeah.
And I've only been back to Alaska as a tourist since. So
Okay. So from 1986, you're here in the Bay Area.
yeah.
You start to get established, but you're working in the tech industry. And the tech industry in the Bay Area, of course, in the 80s, you're at the dawn of something
Um,
great.
yeah, we were one of the first internet router providers. It was us and Cisco back then. Unfortunately, Cisco made out a little bit better than we did. But and I was the VP of Technical Services, so I was in charge of quality assurance, field installation engineers, systems engineers, customer service, tech support, all of the things
It's a
that
wide breadth.
no one, all the jobs no one in the company wants because they're
Uh-huh.
all you can't win jobs.
You became the catch all.
I was the idiot that would take anything that they needed done.
Uh-huh. They would just whisper, "Hey, we talked Brad into coming here for 3 months, and he's still here.
Yeah.
So you give him whatever you want, he'll take it." So from there, keep going with your evolution because now 18 years into high tech, at some point you figure out you want to do something different.
I was at the point I was either going to have a heart attack on a plane or I was going to strangle the living shit out of the VP of engineering and end up in prison. I was about that close.
Okay.
So I had picked up wood turning as a hobby, and I told my wife I was going to just take a year off, just a year, and go play in the shop.
Uh huh.
And that was in 2004. And I'm still out playing in the shop.
So 2004, actually, that was a great time to do that.
It was.
So you go out, you start playing in the shop. First of all, how'd you get into wood turning?
I just picked it up as a hobby. I was making furniture, and I had made a fireplace surround, and my wife wanted some fluted pilasters for that fireplace, and I told her I couldn't make those because I didn't have a lathe.
Okay.
And at the time,
Everybody
I
Google fluted pilaster. Go ahead.
I had a sailboat,
Uh,
and I came home one day, and she said, "You know that client I have with the sailboat? Well, it's or with a lathe. Now it's your lathe, and he's got your sailboat." So she traded my
she
sailboat for a
traded your
lathe.
sailboat for a lathe. That was your first wife. You're not married to her
I
anymore.
still am, musically enough,
Okay.
but she's never got her fluted pilasters yet.
That's the bait you used. You got me a lathe. I'm going to get right to that, honey. Stick around.
Yeah. And I just turned my first bowl on a lathe and thought, this is it.
Oh,
And it was
yeah.
addictive.
Okay. You turned your first bowl on a lathe. Well, I'm in your workshop, and I see a lot of your bowls. So I want you to show us what that process looks like. But first, tell us, where do you get the material for this stuff?
I get most of my wood from orchard removal services, from highway road crews, and from arborists and tree service people in the Bay Area. They're all trees that have had to come down or fallen down for some reason. I use a lot of walnut burl. Like I went through 20,000 pounds of walnut burl last year,
Wow.
and that all came from an orchard up north of Sacramento Airport, a little town called Rios Osos, Bear River.
Yeah.
And every 40 or 50 years, they have to pull out every walnut tree in the orchard to replant them. And so
Every 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the cycle of a walnut orchard. You get a guy plants a walnut orchard. By the time it needs to cycle again, it's his grandson's walnut orchard.
Mm-hmm.
But every 2 generations or so, the entire orchard's got to get pulled up. And so when they do that, I imagine they do it in waves.
Yeah.
So you rotate the orchard, and then so you pull up a walnut tree that's 40, 50 years old, and you end up with a whole lot of wood.
Yeah, and all the walnut trees here in California, the rootstock is called Claro walnut, which is native to California, and it's resistant to all the insects and mites and such in the ground. And then they graft on some variety of English walnut, because the native walnut has terrible tasting walnuts. They're tiny and hard and really bitter. And so
but they're resilient.
They're resilient.
So they need the resilience, and they get the flavor from the English walnut.
But then at that graft line, over 40 or 50 years, it develops something called black line, where the rootstock starts to sort of revolt against the English walnut.
Oh, yeah.
But as it's growing, the rootstock keeps trying to say, wait a minute, I want to grow my own nuts. So it puts out tiny little branches, thousands of them right at the base, at the roots. And that's what creates a burl. And a burl is sort of the big, ugly growth at the base of the tree, but it's got the best grain patterns around, because it's nothing but tiny little branches and buds trying to come out.
Yes. So when you get that that root ball at the bottom that's got to get pulled up, that's what you're after.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
Wow. Fantastic. Okay. So now you get a chunk of wood. What does your chunk of wood look like?
It's typically a big ball, weighs up to 1,500 pounds.
1,500 pounds.
It almost looks like an elephant foot.
Okay.
It's got the leg, and then the great big gnarly knobby toes sticking out, which are where the roots start to spread out.
Right. Well, you chop it off at the ankle.
Yeah.
Approximately. And then you're after that, the heart of that.
Yeah, the very base of the tree is where the best wood is for turning bowls.
Okay.
And
so you get a 1,500 pound hunk of walnut. How many bowls do you get out of that?
Probably 40 or 50.
Wow. Okay.
And so in the course of a year, I have to first get the wood, and in the winter, I do what's called rough turning, where you take the chunk of wood, you do a rough shape of the bowl you want to make, and leave the walls thick, about 10% of the diameter of the bowl in wall thickness. And this wood is wet and dripping and green, and then has to dry slowly. So if it's winter and moist and cool, I can just let it dry naturally. If it's warmer weather, I have to actually coat it in wax, and so it doesn't dry too fast.
Okay.
Because if it dries too fast, it'll crack and split.
I see.
So I typically will rough turn 400 or 500 bowls a year, and then have them drying. And I've got always 2,000 or 3,000 pieces drying.
Yes. So that first rough turn, you set that aside to dry. That's going to be, you're going to get back to it next year. Wow. And so while it's sitting there drying, you're working on the bowls, doing the fine turn.
Yeah.
How many turns does a bowl get?
Usually 2.
Okay. So when you get to that second one, this is the home stretch. But this thing's been in the workshop for a year, just drying, getting ready for you. And so what does it look like at the point where you pull it off the shelf and it's ready to get the fine turn?
It kind of looks like this right here. I don't know if you can get that in the camera, but it's just a rough shape of the bowl. And that's just a small jewelry bowl that I'll turn here in a minute just to show you the process. But,
okay. I just want, for the benefit of our viewers, I want them to see that you do a rough turn on something. And when you do that rough turn, it's flat, it's round, it's where you want it to be. But in the drying process,
yeah, it warps and moves and distorts. And by the end, the rim's not flat. It's the sides of the bowls are rippled and it's oval shaped typically. But if you leave the wall thickness thick enough, you can put it back on the lathe and turn it the second time to get it to the final shape, and it'll stay that shape forever.
Right. Okay. So once it dries and you get to the final turn, you're waiting on it to get to that last shape where it's going to settle in. No more moisture in there. It's going to stay whatever you make of it at that point. Please show us a little bit of the turning process.
Back here.
Okay, this is a treat for our viewers. We don't get to do this very often, where we actually see the craftsman exercising his craft. So I hope we're capturing this in a way that allows you to hear it, see it, not be here we go.
Is just get it round it up. And that now I can sort of refine the shape to get a nice, pleasing now I'll come back and clean up that outside and tweak the shape in a second, but now I'll come around and hollow out the inside.
Okay.
Most of the bowls I turn are 20 inches to 16 inches. This is just a little small piece, but it can give you an idea of the process. And this one's been drying since 2015, so I think it's dry.
Okay, that's terrific.
Hopefully that's not too loud for the microphone.
Terrific. It's starting to take shape.
Yes, I can finish turn probably 5 good-sized salad bowls in one day, or probably 10 of these little jewelry bowls. So
In a day.
in a day,
How
yeah.
much, what by volume, how much sawdust do you make in a day?
When I'm rough turning green wood, I'll do 7 or 8 garbage cans full of shavings in a
A
day.
day.
Yeah.
Wow. Terrific.
So it helps to have the forklift to get them all loaded into the van and hauled away.
Yeah.
I live on the top of a hill, and over the years, I've been dumping them down the really steep ravine, and I probably have 8 foot thick of wood shavings back there, and then the ice plant grows up over it because the
Yeah.
shavings
It's
act
the
like a big
best mulch.
sponge. And
Terrific.
so,
So it just goes right back to the earth.
yeah,
Yeah, and for our viewers who are farther away, we have, when Brad says he lives at the top of a hill, we have some good sized hills. So there's a nice valley back there to pour that all that volume of mulch into.
yeah,
That's
and
terrific.
it's really kind of interesting. It's one of the few sort of professions to where I start with what's going to be wood chips and mulch to begin with, because everything is probably going to go into a chipper or into a big firewood pile.
Yeah.
And in the entire process, no one has touched it but
But
me
you,
until it goes on the shelf and someone picks it off the shelf.
that's fantastic. Now, before we go any further, if somebody wants to pick it off the shelf, where do you sell your wares?
I sell them online at benicia.com/wood.
Okay.
I think you might have to put the .html in there, /HTML, sorry.
Yeah.
Or I sell at the San Francisco Ferry Building every Saturday, right outside the Ferry Building at Pier 1 Half.
Uh-huh.
And those are probably my main venues.
So, San Francisco Ferry Building every Saturday. If you don't visit the Ferry Building, you should visit the Ferry Building anyway. But if you go there on Saturdays, you'll be able to see Brad and these custom turned handmade wood bowls that are made from walnut burl that gets pulled out of the earth. And then no human hands touch it besides Brad before you pick it up and take it home to make Caesar salad in.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrific. So now you have this, seeing the enormity of this lathe, I now understand. Okay, well, you got a lathe and somebody got a sailboat. So it's understanding now what it is and what it does. That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good trade, especially knowing that the two best days of boat ownership are the day you buy it and the day you get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. And I have probably put 20,000 hours on this lathe, and I'm up to about 8,000 bowls. So
Wow.
I think
Well,
I
that
got the
certainly
better end
makes
of the
you a
deal.
master. Yeah. It's more productive than what you had before.
Yeah. That it is.
Terrific. So, what are your? Let's see. This workshop that you're in seems pretty well set up, but you've been here how long?
Since 2006, I think, is when I moved down here.
Uh-huh.
I just needed more space for drying, and just more place for wood storage. Besides the bowls, I do a lot of small, what I call tourist trinkets.
Okay.
Wine bottle stoppers, beer bottle openers. I make a really unique beer bottle opener that I can't make enough of them. I make a batch of 20 every Monday, and I'm always sold out. So,
Wow.
Um,
Your foray into the shed for a little while. I mean, you planned on taking a year off and just horsing around in the shed, and you've been in here ever since. And it's you can't make this stuff fast enough.
yeah, it really, and it's kind of funny if I stay away from the shop more than 2 or 3 days, I start to get twitchy. I'm not someone who can sit around and watch TV or play video games. I have to be making something, and I think that's why I got burnt out on high tech, is I didn't see any physical product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And some people go, "Oh, you're an artist," and I'm the furthest thing there is from an artist. I have
Why do
more
you
of the
say that?
farm. I'm not trying to make a statement. I'm not trying to make a piece of art. I'm trying to make a really beautiful functional piece.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Is
it,
there not some wholesome form of social commentary though in this
uh,
handmade piece of what you're not willing to call art, but that somebody else and
um,
it's in the eye of the beholder. So somebody who takes this handmade bowl, the hands, one pair of human hands have touched this bowl before it was purchased to take home, and I mean I think there's a statement in there.
I don't know. I maybe artisan, but artist,
Okay,
to me, artist is trying to make some kind of statement, and
all
I'm
right.
just trying to make something really beautiful.
Uh huh.
You know, and even an ugly bowl, there's a purpose for an ugly bowl. You can stick it in the garage and put your nuts and bolts in it, but an ugly piece of art has no purpose, and I want everyone to consider this a purposeful item. So,
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the statement. That's a statement that maybe is we've lost sight of. So there.
hmm
You are, by the way, the featured artist on Benicia.com. Tell us about Benicia.com.
oh, um, I go back in high tech so far that the internet was just starting out, and one of my employees was showing me around and saying, "Oh, domain names are going to be the thing. You really have to get into it." And so my wife was in real estate, and we live in the town of Benicia, and so I went out and got Benicia.com, which was probably one of the best investments I could have made
Yeah.
because it's one of her main sales tools right now is having the domain name. So
Wow. Did you scoop up any other domain names
I
besides
did not.
Benicia.com? Ah,
I wish I had.
missed opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is though, from the high tech world that I sure was quite lucrative, and that you ran all these departments because you became the catch-all.
hmm
So you had a lot to do. You had no shortage of work. I'm sure you were paid pretty well for it. And then getting to the point where you want to take a hunk of wood and make a bowl out of it, um, different kind of satisfaction. But it seems like you wear that satisfaction like a guy who really enjoys what he does all
I,
day.
I do. I enjoyed the first 15 years in high tech, and the last 3 years were misery. And
Ah,
in my opinion, there's only three reasons to ever have a job. Number one is you really enjoy it. Number two is you're making a whole lot of money, and you can make a lot of money for a amount of time and then go do something you enjoy,
yeah.
or that you're really learning something that's going to benefit you later on in life.
Hmm.
I'm old. Later on in life, not much work time left, so I'm doing something that I really enjoy.
Okay.
And it's not the money I'd make in high tech, but my goal was to get to half what I made in high tech, and I've exceeded that goal. So I make a nice, comfortable living, and I am not going to have to strangle the VP and end up in
Right.
prison. So
Nobody gets
no
strangled,
one gets strangled.
and to date, nobody has had a heart attack on a plane.
Yeah. And then every Tuesday is an open shop day for me. So I have woodturners from around the Bay Area, sometimes from around the world, drop in on Tuesday. So I always have 4 or 5 guys. They bring their own chairs, line up. One guy, Bob, has been coming for so many years that when I'm turning a bowl, I can give everyone a lesson without saying a word because he can give us play by play of everything I'm doing and why I do it.
Terrific.
And so everyone gets free lessons, and the only deal is they have to take me out to lunch.
That's pretty good. That's a great
Yeah,
deal if you can get it. And Bob narrates for you.
he does.
Fantastic. Uh, just I want to do a side note here. Nothing to do with wood turning, but we have a couple of loyal viewers who Pete grew up with, who both happen to be physicians, and I managed to sit between them when they had the conversation. Hey man, have you ever been called out on a plane? Like, is anyone here a doctor? And both of them had it happen to them twice. And so the we make jokes about somebody having such a stressful job that they have a heart attack on a plane, but two different physicians we know who watch the show have had occasions where they had to deal with a guy on a plane who had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So glad it wasn't you, Brad.
Glad it wasn't me.
Okay, so we got bowls that are available at the San Francisco Ferry Building on Saturdays. Seriously, you guys, go to the Ferry Building on Saturdays. You're going to have some great food. You're going to have amazing scenery. You're going to run into Brad. He's going to show you a bowl that he made with his own two hands and that no other human hands have touched between that thing coming out of the earth and you taking it home to make salad or whatever it is you're going to do with it. The the other way to get them is on Benicia.com/wood. And if you go there, you can purchase bowls online and take a look. The pictures on that website are great, but they don't do the bowls justice. So you really have to see these things up close and put your hands on them to to feel the smoothness of the bowl, but to look at the burl pattern and all the fun stuff that exists on it. You're gonna have this bowl for years and years and years, and you're gonna discover things about it every time you use it. Where is the furthest you've had to ship a bowl?
Um, Beijing.
Wow,
I
pretty
had
far.
I had one lady, kind of humorous. She showed up at my booth and at 8 o'clock in the morning, and she was Chinese, no English whatsoever. Grabbed this bowl. You could see she was in love with it. Pulled out her phone, was trying to say what wood, and I was trying to translate that it was iron bark, and it would translate the iron, but when it went to bark, it would say danger, angry dog. And this went on for a while, and the bowl was a $750 bowl. And so she bought a few smaller pieces and left. And I thought, well, it's probably slightly out of her price range. She showed up later on that day with her husband in tow, and he had an Armani suit on, and her daughter was wearing a Stanford Medical School sweatshirt. And she grabbed that bowl and was showing it to her husband, and he wasn't having it. And they were going back and forth in Chinese for probably half an hour.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he didn't want to spend the money, because he kept going over and grabbing other bowls
Yeah.
and saying, how about this one? How about this one? And they weren't any less expensive, but and
She
I
wanted that
realized
one.
that the one she picked was a very fragile bowl with bark on it that was still 3 or 4 inches tall. And I could see that he didn't know how to get it back to China. So luckily I had built a custom made box to hold that bowl and ship that bowl. So I pulled that out and showed it to him, and so he was kind of warming up to the idea, but they kept going back and forth. And so finally I called the daughter over and I told her, I'm a big fan of Chinese proverbs. I've got books on them all over the place, but we have some pretty good ones here in the US too. There's one from the southern US that pretty much says,
that's where all the
if
good proverbs
mother
come
is
from.
not happy, no one is happy.
That's right.
And she cracked up laughing. So the mother came over and got it translated for her, and the father just turned around and handed me the credit card and stormed away. And so that bowl ended up in Beijing.
Terrific. And we had a happy family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great story. So now, as you continue to make these things and you sell them at the Ferry Building, how long have you been at the Ferry Building?
I've been at the Ferry Building across the street in Embarcadero Plaza probably 14 years, 13
14 years.
Yeah. Part of San Francisco Arts Commission program.
Yeah. So that's right there. Embarcadero Plaza is between
right where Market Street dead ends.
One Embarcadero and Justin Herman Plaza, where the fountain is. Yeah. That area right there where folks are selling their wares. You get all kinds of interesting things over there. And so you've been there for 14 years.
And then during COVID, I moved across the street to the Ferry Building up on Saturday for the farmers market.
Okay.
I used to catch a lot of the ferry crowd getting off the ferry that needed wedding presents going up to the
excellent
financial district, and then COVID shut all that down. So I had to adapt, and I moved across the street and started going in on Saturdays and catching the farmers market crowd. So
yeah, that's great. So now, oh, what a nice racket to be right there. People are getting off the ferry. They're getting wedding gifts. They're on their way to, the waterfront, the restaurant there, or one market where they're going to go to a beautiful reception. and they're going to get a handmade wedding gift right on their way in.
Yeah, I would have some guys get off their prayer and go, "Oh, I'm glad you're here.
Yep.
I need 5 gifts, in this price range. Pick out your 5 best ones. Here's a credit card. I'll send my assistant down at lunch to pick them up."
Yes.
You couldn't get a better gig than that.
Great way to make a sale. Great way to make a multiple sale. So, what besides bowls? You got bowls. You got beer
Beer
openers.
bottle openers.
Yeah. What else have you
Wine
messed around
bottle
with?
stoppers. I make cremation urns.
Oh yeah.
And then Japanese, the ikebana flower vases.
Uh-huh.
I make a lot of those.
Wow.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay. And your wife still hasn't had her. What was it you promised to make her when she got you this lathe?
Fluted pilasters. It's sort of like the front porch columns that have the flutes going up and down.
Okay.
On them.
Yeah. Do you have any? Has she doesn't want them anymore, or do you have any intention of actually?
I found I really don't like doing architectural turnings.
Ah.
I hate making the same shape twice in a row.
I see.
Somebody paid me once to make a chess set, and I'll never make a chess set again. 16 pawns, done.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing about commissioned art. I mean, everybody wants to say, hey, I'm going to support an artist by commissioning them to do this, but whatever that thing is that you've commissioned them to do, you probably have expectations about it. You probably have, the desire to have 16 pawns that are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds painful.
It is. The worst thing is when someone brings a chunk of wood to me and says, "My grandfather planted this tree. Can you make me a cremation urn from this chunk of wood?" And it sounds really wonderful, but it's always some really dry, old, cracked, ugly piece of wood. And I'm sitting at it going, how can I make this into something beautiful? And so those are the worst commissions.
You can't, what's the old saying? You can't make a sow's ear into a silk purse. Or you can't polish a turd. Well, that's great. Yeah. What would you like people to know about? What would you like people to know about Benicia? What would you like people to know about what you're doing in here? And
Benicia itself, it's just my favorite town in the Bay Area. I moved here in '86, and I looked everywhere from Half Moon Bay to Sebastopol, and came across this town and just went, wow.
Yeah.
And Arts Benicia is a good organization. The First Street, all the businesses down on First Street. So, and then the whole other side of Benicia is the industrial park, where you can get nice, affordable rent, have a space like this.
Yeah, that's where we are now.
And not have to spend a fortune.
Yeah. And it's got its own charm down here. I mean, you have from your spot a water view. You have the railroad going by.
Yeah. I have a pair of tundra swans out there that nest every winter when the water's this high. And I have the best dust collection system in the world. Woodturners create tons of dust. And most of them are working in their garages or in their basements, and they spend a ton of money on dust collection systems, and they're always bragging about it. And I tell them all that my dust collection system is worth $300 million because all I have to do is open up the door, turn the fans on, and there are 10,000 brand new cars right outside my door downwind of me, and nothing collects dust better than a brand new car.
Yeah, you're at the port that receives all the new cars for the West Coast. And you're over here making sawdust.
There are literally 10,000 cars right outside my door.
That's right. That's right. Well, the ability for them to soak up dust, you're right. Nothing gets dust like a new car. That's fantastic. You got the world by the tail over here.
Yeah, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. How much longer do you feel like you're going to do this?
As long as I can.
Let's see. You look like a ripe young 43.
Yeah, I'm 66, but I figure I've got maybe 4 or 5 more years of chainsawing left into me, and that's about it. So what I need to do is have about 3,000 roughed out bowls drying, so I can probably keep turning till I'm 90. But
wow.
I have one buddy that turned until he was 98.
Terrific. All right. Well, I hope you do last that long in the business. It seems like something that's not only great for everybody who buys a bowl and takes it home, but it seems like it's really fulfilling for you and allows you the freedom to, create, which is what every artist, I can't stop calling you that, wants to do.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have can you show us one of the beer openers and one of the wine stoppers?
Sure.
Of course, I'm going to ask you that while you're all strung up and wearing stuff. I'll let you. Yeah. Okay. So the camera's on me. You can do whatever you want. Right now, I want everybody to know Brad's taking his pants off. So we belted Brad up and we got him all mic'd up and harnessed. And then I asked him to take a walk over to another part of the shop and go do stuff. But, we talk about all of this wood turning stuff that he does. I want us to be able to see some of the things that he makes, not just the bowls. And he was kind enough to show us a little bit of the craft making the bowls. But so you can see that there's a bowl over there. There's one that he was working on, but there's another one on the back side of the lathe that he had been working on, and it's a little further along. All right, let's take a look at what's going on here. Wow. Give me a minute. I'm gonna say probably have the business end is over here. You're gonna do this. Yeah. Fantastic. That is great. That looks terrific. Look at this thing. And Brad doesn't want to take credit for being an artist. That's beautiful. So again, we are here in Benicia, California, Pete's hometown, my hometown, and that was my way to get Brad to hand me a beer. Worked pretty well. I'm pretty crafty that way. Anyway, we hope you are enjoying this stuff, and come see Brad. So one more time, go to Benicia.com/wood, or just go to Benicia.com. Look at the featured artist, because for a limited time, Brad will be the featured artist on Benicia.com. And Benicia.com/wood will get you to his wares. You can take a look at them.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you